Good afternoon. I am Tony Dottino and doing my Live with Tony on the second part of an article I was reading over the last few days on human connection, and wanted to share some of the key highlights that I found really noteworthy that I wanted to share with our USA Memory Championship fan club, audience, participants, and my Live with Tony and Tony folks that send me notes on Facebook or to my a.dottino email address. And as I was reading through this article, it's all about human connection, and is it good for your health, and certainly good for your mental state. And then it comes along with an article I'm reading on shutdowns spur mental health crises, and one that I read on the value of a handshake and the importance of physical touch and how you can offset some of the restrictions we've got. And of course, trying to stay up to date with where we are on COVID-19. It's just a flood of information and yet uncertainty in terms of what's going on. So I found the Human Connection article that was done by Tatiana Denning. She's a family medicine physician who focuses on wellness and prevention. And what I love about Tatiana is she wants to empower people with knowledge and skills so they can improve their own health in a proactive way. So this whole notion of human connection, we've covered this many times. We cover it in our Maximum Memory Mastery online course. We cover it in our live Brain Power Series workshops. And within it, we teach people one of the first things you want to be able to do is remember people's names and face, and then accumulate a little bit of information about them so you can build the connection and you can build a trust and a confidence in the relationship that you can remember for the next time you meet someone. So we differentiate the difference between people that you want to remember and that you meet on some frequent or some regular basis versus people you may meet once in your life and that'll be the last time you see them. But in either case, both of those interactions are important. And in both cases, to remember a person's name and how you link their face to it and a little bit about them helps you to build the story and have some fun in doing it. And so one of the skills that people ask me about frequently, especially in my business consulting practices, can you teach me how to remember somebody's name and face? And to me, that's the first thing that you begin to build when you have human connection. Can I remember the person I met? Can I remember a few things about them? Can I remember some interesting, I call them branches, or interesting bits of information that help me build the connection of maybe they like to play golf, or maybe they like a certain sports team, or maybe they have got certain family contacts and careers that they can talk about. What are some of the personal things that you can learn someone that's not invading on their privacy that helps to begin to build a level of connection and fun in a conversation that you can begin to think of as being easy to retain and recall? And so now I say, there's some of the thoughts that we build into our Maximum Memory Mastery online course. And we want it to be fun. We want it to be easy. We don't want people to think of maximizing their memory in a way that's laborious or, as we learned in school, rote, where you just pound it into people's heads. But how do you make it interesting and fun? Now, the benefits for this, this is what really hit me, is in studies that were done. So now we're going to go back and we're going to talk about studies that are being done at various universities, and they talk about the universities that were done here in the British Medical Journal, and a study that was done there, one that was done at Brigham Young University. But they basically are netting out that saying socializing doctors, they've got now doctors that are prescribing socialization activities as medications for some of their patients. Now this, to some people, this may sound a little bit far out, but imagine going to your doctor and having them now, I get to do a survey at my doctor that I see twice a year. I go through 10 questions, and what he's trying to assess is Do I have a level of isolation, loneliness, or beginnings of depression? And those are questions that are geared towards looking at my mental health. There's this Montreal assessment they do now for mild cognitive impairment that doctors are giving to seniors. And I would suggest that in looking at that evaluation, that they probably could give it to people even younger than seniors. But the point of it matter is in this article on human connection, it's defining some doctors now that are beginning to have mental fitness and mental awareness of your socialization activities as part of your overall mental and physical health. So here goes now some of the data, okay? In the British Medical Journal, they discovered that those who had poor social connections had what percentage do you think that would increase their possibility of heart disease? I mean, who would think about a poor social connection being connected to heart disease? And then the second part is, and who would think of connecting this to their risk of stroke? So heart disease and stroke connected with social interactions, but yet in the British Journal of Medicine, a medical journal, they suggested that 29% of those with poor social connections 29% increased their risk of heart disease, had a 29% increased risk of heart disease, and a 32% increased risk of stroke. I'm like, who needs either one of those two in terms of their life expectancy? And if we think of our heart as being our pumping station for oxygen, now we start connecting that to our brain health and how oxygen is being fed to our brains. So here we go, social connections and interactions. And then last but not least, the thing that just is like the icing on this cake, at Brigham Young, they come along and say decreased social connection results in a 50%, I mean, these numbers are just staggering, risk of an early death. And boy, I have, in my own mom's case, when my dad passed, my mom felt so isolated, even though she had grandkids and you try to talk to her, where she eventually wound up with a stroke and died much earlier than any of us in the family would have wanted. And so when you see spouses that pass off and stories you read about as one spouse passes and the other one then feels loneliness and this loss of their best friend, and then they're I just want to go to heaven. I just want to go to where my other half is. It's on one level sad and I think preventable. So the fact that doctors are now beginning to test for this, to me, is absolutely fascinating. And then in the Journal of Gerontology, they follow 12,000 participants. So this to me is quite a few people over a 10-year period of time. And they found a correlation of dementia and loneliness. And those that felt the loneliness had a 40% increase in their risk of having dementia. So again, who thinks of social connection when we see dementia, and everybody is concerned about that in some form or another, especially when they get to be 50 years old? Who would think that you could go all the way backwards and start in what I call root cause and begin to uncover some of these elements of dementia tied to loneliness, isolation, and being disconnected? And as I was reading something yesterday in one of my science journals, their predictions are, through all these lockdowns that we've got and people going out of business and not having financials and isolating themselves and becoming more in a depressed state, the result of all of that is going to be worse than the COVID-19. And the bad news is we don't know what that is. It's a huge blank. And we don't know what that is at this point, and it may be years before we uncover it. And so what I'm trying to tell my audience at this point is, how can you maintain some levels of social interaction and find some ones or some people that you can talk with that can build connections? So one of the tips I gave the other day, and I got a note from my daughter who lives in Pennsylvania. I live in Windermere, Florida, which is near Disney. So I'm beginning to hear the boat, the doot doot on the boats and things of that sort. And so the park is back open, and my daughter's in Pennsylvania, and she said, "Dad, I just missed the the connection with you. And so one of the things I started doing with her today is getting on a Zoom and a crossword puzzle. And one of the things we do together is crossword puzzles. We both love them. We enjoy them. I have to admit, Karen is better at them than I am. And we started doing a box in a crossword puzzle that we started working on together. And I had some answers and she had some answers, and we filled in one box of our crossword. So we're going to schedule time on a regular basis to one of these big crosswords that we get out of the newspaper. And we'll do it over a series of time, but it'll help us to build at least a little bit of social connection on an activity that we used to sit down at a beach or at a pool, and we'd sit down and picnic and we'd do it together. And so we're trying to resume doing some of the things that we've done in the past to build some connection. And when I read this article, and the doc that's doing this is quoting, the increased social connections, 50% increase of early death. It's as harmful as smoking 15 cigarettes a day or being overweight by more than 20 pounds. And you say, my goodness, wait a minute. This is nuts. Because if we put our creative brain to work, there are things we can do to at least to minimize. Is it going to be perfect? Is it going to be the way the ideal would be? No, but what we need to be able to do is put our creative minds together and figure out how to do this. And so I welcome emails to my adottino@aol.com. I want to make a difference. And when I'm talking with different people, I probably talk to 3 or 4 different people every week, I welcome the opportunity to offer a tip or a suggestion or something they may be able to do to take some of that stress and some of that anxiety off their shoulders and give people a level of hope as to, can we get through this whole COVID-19 thing? It's an experience in our lives we've never faced before. I'm a senior. I've never seen anything like this in my whole life. And I hope that my audience never gets to see anything like this again. And we can all figure out how to get to the other side. Because we are in this together. We are in all of this. And having a team of people around you and a social network is crucial. And so I will wrap this up with the last suggestion that they make here, and what they're asking people are, so what is in your social network? So what are the things that are in your social network, and what are the social behaviors that you are exercising on a daily and weekly basis? And one of my earlier broadcasts, I told you we want to have at least a handful of intimate social connections, and we'd like to have 10 to 15 that are infrequent, but that are out as people watching on a day-to-day basis. So set your targets and goals, and at least start with a couple of intimates, and then see how you can get out onto the more informals. Even if you sat at a window and watch people go by in your street, or whatever it is that you can do in your own environment to build some of that connection. This is my Thursday, 3 p.m. broadcast. I am back on Saturday in the same time period, and enjoy your day tonight and tomorrow, and look forward to picking up things. I've got so many different articles I want to get to. I'm stacked up here, so we've got a lot to talk about, and hopefully each of you can grab one thing from my Live with Tony that can make a difference in your lives. And I'd love to hear from you in terms of what that is. And if anybody wants to extend a branch, I've got a branch. I'll put it out to you. And if I can be of any help to you, please send me a note at adottino@aol.com.